Thank you very much for welcoming me here tonight. Maybe those of you who looked into the curriculum are a bit confused because obviously I'm not Andreas Rickard, so that unfortunately also means that I'm not the CEO of PHINEO. But I work in the consulting team at PHINEO, and it's my pleasure tonight to tell you a bit who PHINEO is and what we're doing. And yeah, we just noticed that we had a slight misunderstanding on what my input is about, so I will basically tell you about PHINEO and our core activities, and then if you're interested in like something specific, I would just ask you to raise your hand later and ask me all those questions you have. So the agenda would be that first I tell you about PHINEO as the organization, then I will give you like a bit of an input on impact and impact orientation, and then we move on to PHINEO's core activities, and then there's room for all of your questions. But maybe first a few words about myself. So as I said, my name is Stephanie, and I have been working in the consulting sector for about 3 years now. My academic background is psychology and mathematics, which I never really worked in. And I was first in the for-profit sector and did business consulting with the focus on change management before I moved on to the non-profit sector, which means PHINEO for me, so I'm mostly consulting within the non-profit sector. Who's PHINEO? I heard you already heard a few words on PHINEO, but I will also share my perspective with you. So we see PHINEO as kind of a bridge builder between sectors in order to strengthen quality engagement. So we, on one hand, work with nonprofit organizations, which you see on the right, and also with companies, with foundations, with their public sector, and we kind of try to bring them together, and we function as kind of an interconnector, so we can reach some kind of collective impact. And then we also work with each of them on an individual level to increase their impact, the impact of their work. And why are we doing that? PHINEO's main mission is to strengthen impact-driven civic engagement and to showcase successes in their nonprofit sector. And why is that necessary to showcase successes in the nonprofit sector? This is because in the for-profit sector, it's quite easy to define successes. It's basically just the return on your investment. But then in the nonprofit sector, you do not have any profit, so you do not have return on investment. And so there is no easy and no consistent definition of what success is. And so what we say is that success is impact, because impact is usually what was the reason for nonprofit organizations to be founded, and also maybe the reason for a company's social engagement. And we especially think that this is very important because the nonprofit sector is a very large sector, actually. There are about 620,000 nonprofit organizations in Germany. There are 21,000 foundations, and especially there is a lot of money in that sector. But still, many people kind of treat this sector like a pet. Like, oh, that's cute, it's nice, you do something good there, but there's no quality control because it's good. You donate money, you have your social engagement strategy as a company, you give money, you're doing something good, but why would anybody care what is actually done with that money? But looking at the numbers, it's so much money, so they really can something be achieved with. So we want that something is achieved by it. And this is why we work with sorry for that. All different kind of targets groups. So on one hand, we have the non-profit organizations that we want to better achieve their objectives. And then we have the social investors, which would be companies, foundations, the public sector, and foundations who we want to invest more sustainably and with more impact. And this kind of brings us to the question, what is impact? This sounds quite easy, but in our daily work we see that it's apparently not that easy in the organization's everyday work. So in the nonprofit work, you usually have an initial situation with some societal challenge that their nonprofit organization wants to solve or wants to address. So you also have a target situation, which would be the ideal situation where you want to aim at. And between those two, you have some kind of intervention. And this intervention can be like a program of a non-profit organization, but it can also be their corporate citizenship strategy of a company. Also, the companies should have an ideal target situation, what they kind of envision to happen, to then set up their strategy and their programs. So if a program achieves that, to make the link between the problematic initial situation and an ideal target situation, we say that the project created like an outcome or an impact even on a societal level. So how does it look like if you take the big picture? For every kind of engagement, you usually have, or you should have at least, a societal problem in the beginning, some challenge. This might be environmental, this might be social, whatever. There's something you want to address. And then this problem is also connected to some groups who have a specific need. So first you define your societal problem that you want to address, and then you also define the target groups that you want to address. And based on that, you set up your vision and your strategy, your approach, your goals, how you want to address the target groups and how you want to address the problem. And after you have set up your strategy, you then need to actually do something to put it on an operational level. So you need input, you need resources. That might be money, that might be materials, it might be technology, whatever. And by all the input you have invested, you get some kind of an output. So that will be certain services, some products that beneficiaries, your target group, does profit from. And if you do that really good as an organization or as a company, then the beneficiaries do not only participate in your program, in your services, but they also change or something in their lives changed. So that will be an outcome. You get a result on a target group level. So something for the target group has changed because of your intervention, because of your program. And this is already really good. Most organizations or most engagement strategies probably do not come to the outcome level. But if you're really good, then you even make it on an impact level, which means the more participants you got or the more people you reached, the more it will also influence the society as a whole. So maybe first you only reach 10 people in Mannheim, but the more people you reach in Mannheim, you will then make a change in the region Mannheim. So one of our traditional examples is if you do a job training and you want to put people into jobs, then first it's only the people who profit from it, but then later the society gains from it because the unemployment rate drops. So the impact that you reached then contributes to solve the original societal problem. So that is the cycle in a very easy picture. But yeah, as I said, it's not that easy. And yeah, why is it not that easy? You mostly only have 4 boxes. You have inputs, outputs, outcomes, and impact that are important for you, that you finally reach the impact on the last level. But most organizations are stuck here on the output level. And also most foundations and most companies and most everything and never reach that level. Do you have any idea why that is? Why they are all stuck on the output level? It's kind of the performance level. It's because it's so much easier to measure. Because you can easily count how many trainings you offered, you can count how much money you donated, you can count how much infrastructure you maybe offered to somebody. So that is just very easy to measure, whereas the outcome level is very difficult to measure. And this is also because when we go back to that picture, because the organization can only completely control that area here. They can control what vision they have, they can control what input they invest, and what output they have. But here, on the outcome level, you have so many other things that are influencing the outcome, like families, friends, infrastructure, the entire environment. So it's sometimes difficult then to define what was actually really your program that reached the outcome or not reached the outcome, and what was the environment. But this is also why we sometimes say that maybe you should not speak about impact measuring, but rather about impact orientation, because it is true that it's sometimes very difficult to measure the impact, but the more you are focusing on the impact, at least, you always see the path where you want to go to. You always see your objective in front of you, what you want to reach, and then you can do evaluations. You can define some methods. You can define indicators that can show you, okay, have I developed in that field or not? What shows me that I developed, and then you can adjust. And try to get back on your path if you got away from it. And this also helps you just in your general strategy as an organization or as a company. We call it the prove and improve logic, because on one hand, you can communicate better about it, you can report and legitimate. You can convince your CEO, your board, your supervisory board, that what you're doing is actually meaningful. And this is why you can also motivate and convince, because impact is quite motivating. But telling people that you donated $1 million, maybe not that motivating. But telling them what you achieved by what you've done is convincing. And then it also helps you to improve, because by the evaluations you do and your measurements, you also learn about it. You learn maybe what went wrong, why it went wrong, so you can just constantly improve your activities, and you can develop it further and you can scale it up on a program level as well as on an organizational level. So why I told you this is because this is the common theme that goes through all of PHINEO's activities. It's what we mainly want to achieve, that all actions, all civic engagement is reaching some impact. And how we're doing that is, like on one hand, by creating and sharing knowledge, which we mostly do among nonprofit organizations, but we also have publications for companies on corporate volunteering and corporate citizenship, and like there are best practice strategy, and then we show best practice MPOs and projects by our impact label. So as a social investor, you know that this organization has worked very well and has the potential to also reach some impact. And we do some agenda setting, and mainly we support social investors, because actually all activities that we're doing in the end support social investors, because it tells them which organizations are good, where can they reach impacts, how does the nonprofit sector looks like, what organizations do exist, and so on. So I will just quickly guide you maybe through our activities. So our most well-known publication that now has been translated into 4 languages, I believe, is the Social Impact Navigator. So that in detail explains to you how you can set up an effective impact strategy, and also how you can analyze projects, and how you can increase the impact, and what is an impact-oriented project management, and so on and so on. And yeah, this is online, download for free. So if you're interested in that, you can also have a closer look into it. And then one of our very traditional activities that we actually started with are the PHINEO sector reports. So there we pick some societal challenge, some problem, which we see very relevant, like child poverty, inclusion, dementia. We had quite a lot of them now, and do intensive research on that topic and see what are the key issues and which approaches have been successful, which organizations do work in that area, in that field, and which organizations have a best practice approach to solve those problems. And how do we do that? We set up an analysis tool with some other scientific experts, and we look into what impact potential does the project have. So can it reach the impact that it wants to reach, and does it address a relevant social problem? Does it have very clearly defined target groups? Does it have a convincing concept and approach how it can actually solve that problem and how it can reach the target groups? And also, does it constantly try to increase the impact and to scale up? Does it do qualitative evaluations and measurements on the outcome and impact? And then, even though we do focus on the project, there is no good project without a good and strong organization behind it, because you need some strong structures of the organization to actually be able to implement that project. So we do see if they have a clear vision, if they have a good management, if they have good HR management, and so on, to rate those organizations. And this is actually quite a complex process. It takes us usually about a year or more, because we are no field experts. We are all at PHINEO working on very diverse fields. So we work together with other experts that we sit together with, that we're doing research with. What are the most challenging problems at the moment, like in Germany, in the society, and what should we address next, and how can we sharpen our next thematic report. And then the organizations kind of have to show us that they have a very convincing impact potential. So you have 3 phases where they first answer like all our questions on these top categories. Then we go through the informational material, we analyze how they work, and then we do on-site visits to kind of personally get to know them and to see, to clarify remaining questions and to see, if the information we got from the documents actually kind of seems to be true. And in the end, we only have a few best practice projects who really go through the entire process. The majority of projects fail on phase 1 or 2. In the end we have usually about like 20 or 25 organizations that we put into our publication, into our sector report, they are really shown as best practice projects. They get our impact label, as we want to know, of course, what our work is achieving and what our impact label actually does for the organizations. We also asked them, so why we're doing this impact label thing is because on one hand it helps the nonprofit organizations. It helps it's kind of a coaching process for them, how they learn to be more effective in their work, where they learn how to evaluate their projects, and just maybe by the questions that we ask in the first online questionnaire, they already see what matters and what questions they should have answers for. So it helps them for their future to gather the information on their projects and to do more evaluations. But also this impact label, of course, helps social investors to know which organizations work very well, which organizations can reach impact. So if I want to invest as a social investor my 1 million euros, or let's say maybe only 1,000 euros, then I want to know which organizations actually reach impact with my money. So this is how they can maybe get some clarification on where their money is best invested. And this is also what the nonprofit organizations say, that this impact label is kind of a door opener for them when they do fundraising. It does have a high effect for their work, and also good projects are getting more sustainable because they get more funding. Then we also do agenda setting. This is rather maybe a small portion of our daily work, but we also want to kind of stress our topics in public. So what we, for instance, did was that we examined the charity sector regarding its impact orientation and impact transparency, but also large companies in Germany, how they report on their activities and on their corporate citizenship activities. We did it several years in a row, and first our results were super bad, and companies and charity sector alike had barely any information on their websites on what they do with their money and what their money achieves. And this actually has changed significantly in the last 4 to 5 years. So we do have a voice there. And then the last traditional main activity that we do, where I also work at, is their consulting of social investors. So we do strategy development, we do partnerships and dialogues, we do impact orientation. So what does that mean? We kind of want to offer the entire field of setting up an impact-oriented engagement strategy. So it's first about finding your vision and finding the mission, how you want to, who do you want to address, what do you want to achieve by it, and what is your approach, how do you want to do it, what are maybe also the societal challenges that match your company, because we also always think that this should be very interrelated. You should not do something which is very far apart from your core business, because then nobody in your company will be interested in what you're actually doing. And in their partnership and dialogue area, it's more that we kind of initiate and also kind of support cooperations and projects between nonprofit organizations and companies or foundations. And what we often try to set up now is collective impact initiatives. So you bring also several investors together who have the same idea on what they want to address and how they maybe can achieve it. And this of course strengthens their potential by a lot if you have 4 large companies working on one project rather than having only one company. Then we also do, of course, the operational level. We support them in the everyday work, in how to manage their projects, in how to evaluating their projects, and so on. So, as I am often asked, but what are you actually doing? This is an example of a consulting project that we did in the past, and what we, it's kind of typical maybe. So Eckes Granini is a market leader in fruit juices, and they also, are quite committed to sustainability and the family, as well as the entire management and the team. They really want to do something. They want to address some social problems, so they all support the company's social commitment. But it's not that very strategic. It's one donation here, one donation there. So the cooperation with PHINEO aimed to make the engagement more strategic and to create also especially a stronger link to the core business, and thus to increase the outcome for the society, but also for the company. So it's basically creating an outcome for both, and they also want to be known as a very responsibly acting family, and that is why they approached PHINEO. And this is then, in a very short version, how the process looked like, and what we would do. So basically, first we would do a lot of analysis. So we go through all the documents of the company. We see what their current social engagement strategy is. We see what projects they have, in what areas are they active. Then we do some benchmarking analysis. So we want to see, what do other companies do in the food area? How could you maybe connect your corporate citizenship strategy to you as a food company? And then also see okay, what areas are maybe already occupied by other food companies, and what can you still do as a very innovative approach. And then we also do phone interviews. We want to know what are their personal perspectives of like the key representatives of the company, in this case Eckes Granini, and what is their vision for the future engagement. And then we do first a strategy workshop, or like generally just a strategy first phase, where we want to identify how the engagement profile and how the strategy could look like. So we come together in a workshop, we see what is the vision and the mission of like all the different people of Eckes Granini, and what do they want to achieve, what is maybe also their passion, and yeah, how can you connect the company to some societal problem out there. So we see what characteristics should their engagement have. And and then in a second phase, in the impact workshop, we see how can this actually really be implemented, what structures should you have, what processes, what roles and responsibilities do you need, and so on and so on. So how is this like really, how can this be lived in the everyday life? This was now like a short version of what PHINEO does, and now we still have quite some time left, so I can still go more into detail maybe on the content. So as I heard, you already talked about shared value before, and this is also what we think is the absolute foundation of sustainable social engagement. So we call it a business case and a social case. So the social case is what you want to achieve on the social level by your engagement. So maybe you want to drop the unemployment rate, maybe you want to save the world from an environmental crash. You have like something that you want to address, and you have objectives for. But then you also have the business case. So this might sound weird at first because you think that like our social engagement strategy should be social. So it should be focused on like their social problems and what it wants to achieve on a societal level. But do you maybe have any idea why it's also important that your business profits from that engagement? Yes, good point. Your business should not get bankrupt. Maybe I say it loud again. Your colleague said that if the business goes bankrupt, you cannot keep up your social strategy. Any other opinions why your business should also profit from your social engagement? So the thing is that at a company, you never have all people and all managers working at the company really liking the idea of social engagement. So there will always be people who say, but why should we get socially engaged? We could use the money for our core business much better, and what use does this have? And then you can say, well, but it does pay off for our reputation and stakeholder relationships. And then people say like, yes, okay, yeah, it does pay off for our reputation, it does, but still exactly like you said, thank you for that remark, that when the company goes bankrupt, or let's say not bankrupt, but when it's just not the best phase, like your revenue dropped, you maybe have some other crisis, the company is just not at its best situation, then you will definitely have a lot of people say like, okay, but now first thing, let's completely cut down our social engagement, which is understandable and also right, because why should you engage in social projects while your company goes very badly? But if you have a social engagement where you also think the business case along, so your strategy is actually paying off for your business, not only for your reputation, but also for other things, like for your employer attractiveness, for your employee motivation, for your employee commitment, or if it goes very strategic, for the employee's competence development, or also because it gives you access to new markets and to like maybe innovation, then the social engagement strategy is actually helping your business. So then it would be kind of stupid to cut down when it goes bad for your core business, because it's very interconnected, your core business gains from it, and this helps the social case as much as the business case, because it makes your engagement more sustainable, it makes it long-term, it's not done after 1 year because there's no money left, or you have critics in the company who just doesn't like the idea anymore, but you can really set up a sustainable engagement strategy. So when you look at this scheme here, when you have a project which is only contributing to the social case, so it only addresses social objectives and no business objectives, then this would be a typical philanthropy project, so like a donation. And this, at first, sounds very cool for like their NPO or whoever, or the beneficiaries, whoever is here on the social case. But then actually it's not so cool, because it's usually a one-time donation, or as I said, it's not sustainable. But if you do integrated and strategic corporate citizenship projects, it's actually higher on the social case and it's higher on your business case. So yeah, you really have an outcome for the two of you. And then, yeah, the more you would go into this direction, the more you get to the core business. So we think, and we firmly believe, that projects which are here in this area, having a shared value for the company and for the society, are the best projects that you can have. And yeah, as an example, Microsoft is not outstanding, but is very good with their corporate citizenship strategy. So they have 3 programs. So they also do not have too much, because too many programs are kind of do not reach any impact because just too many, and then not enough money for each of them. So they have 3, and especially their digital volunteering is a quite cool project. So they donate their software to nonprofit organizations, and then also help them work with them. So they do on one hand donation, but they also do corporate volunteering, because their employees go to the nonprofit organizations and help them how to actually work with that software. And what is the business case here? Any idea what's the profit for Microsoft? That the non-profits work with their software? Yes?
So, for example, there are people who are educated in using their software or using software in general, or that people talk about their software as they're using it.
Exactly. Yeah, very good. People talk about their software, people are using their software. It's basically spreading their software, and then people get more used to use Microsoft software than to use Apple software. So, yeah, and also with their other programs, like Code Your Life is a program where they work with 10 to 14-year-old kids to help them, or to train them in coding. So this is also that they, pays off for the business case because they get maybe future employees who know how to code, who are interested in that field, but also they help on a societal level because we definitely have a need for technical experts, for coding experts. And so this is like kind of how it should be, and where we want to get companies to, that they have this like really close interrelation between their core business and their corporate citizenship.